Imagine an animal that can literally come back from the dead. Or another one that spends 17 years underground just to emerge and scream for 2 weeks straight. Yeah, nature is way weirder than any Netflix drama could ever be, and today, I'm exposing some of the strangest animals whose entire existence makes absolutely zero sense. Welcome to Animal Facts. Before we proceed, remember to hit the subscribe button. 1. The ocean's pancake disaster, sunfish. Let's start with what happens when evolution hits Ctrl plus Z halfway through creating a fish. If you took a regular fish, cut it in half, forgot to add the back end, and then hit save anyway, you'd get the sunfish. Also known as the mola mola, which honestly sounds like a name someone made up while having a stroke. Here's where it gets absurd. These things hatch as tiny spiky balls the size of a pinhead, then somehow grow into 2,000-pound floating pancakes. They gain up to 2 pounds per day by eating jellyfish, which, if you didn't know, are basically 95% water with a slight attitude problem. It's like trying to gain weight by eating air-flavored Jell-O. But wait, it gets worse. Sunfish are covered in over 40 different types of parasites at any given time. So many parasites that they've developed a survival strategy that's basically giving up. They float to the surface, lie there like a depressed dinner plate, and let seagulls land on them to eat the parasites off their skin. Imagine being so slow and helpless that your entire skincare routine consists of lying there and letting seagulls exfoliate you. That's the sunfish lifestyle, and here's the kicker: even predators don't respect them enough to finish the job. Sharks and sea lions will take a bite out of a sunfish, realize it tastes like disappointment wrapped in mucus, and just leave. And the sunfish, it just keeps swimming with a chunk missing like nothing happened. Quick poll. Would you rather live parasite-covered like a sunfish, or be forced to eat nothing but jellyfish for every meal? Drop parasite or buffet in the comments. I need to know who is brave enough to pick either. 2. The underground party crashers, cicadas. Now let's talk about cicadas, the ultimate example of you're doing what with your life. These insects spend 13 to 17 years underground. Not months, not a couple of years. Over a decade, just sitting in the dirt sucking sap from tree roots like the world's most patient vampire. And after all that time, after 17 years of preparation, they finally emerge for their big moment. And immediately start screaming at the top of their lungs for 2 weeks straight before dying. Imagine prepping for 17 years, studying, planning, getting your life together, and when you finally leave the house, you just scream at strangers and desperately try to hook up before time runs out. That's basically college, but underground and with more exoskeletons. The weirdest part, those 13 and 17-year cycles aren't random. They're prime numbers, which scientists think evolved specifically to avoid syncing up with predator life cycles. These bugs are literally using advanced mathematics to avoid getting eaten, which means cicadas understand number theory better than most people who failed algebra. When they do emerge, millions of them come out at once, creating a deafening chorus that can reach 100 decibels. For reference, that's as loud as a motorcycle or a rock concert. Imagine waiting 17 years just to participate in nature's worst music festival. And here's the tragedy: if they emerge at the wrong time, maybe a week early or late to bad, 17 years of waiting completely wasted. No second chances, no do-overs. Just immediate death and zero sympathy from the universe. 3. The jellyfish that refuses to die. Alright, let's talk about Torritopsis dohrnii, the immortal jellyfish. And yes, it's exactly what it sounds like, a jellyfish that discovered the cheat code to eternal life. When this jellyfish gets old, injured, or stressed out, it doesn't die like every other living thing with the decency to follow the rules of mortality. Oh no. Instead, it just reverts back to its polyp stage, essentially its childhood form, and starts its entire life over again. It's like hitting a biological reset button whenever things get tough. Basically, it's the Benjamin Button of the sea, except slimmer, transparent, and it poops out of the same hole it eats from. Because when you're designing an immortal organism, apparently a whole system is asking too much. This jellyfish can theoretically live forever as long as it doesn't get eaten, which sounds amazing until you realize what immortality actually means for a brainless blob floating in the ocean. No memories, no experiences, no concept of self, just eternal drifting, eating, dodging predators, and occasionally reverting to childhood when a fish gets too aggressive. Immortality sounds cool when you're thinking about it from a human perspective and limited time to learn, create, and experience things. But when you're a jellyfish, you're just floating, brainless, transparent, dodging hungry sea turtles for literal eternity. That S not living forever, that S just being stuck in the world's worst waiting room with no magazines and no exit. The universe gave one creature the gift of immortality and chose to waste it on something with zero neurons and no ability to appreciate the irony. Thanks, evolution, for rabbits, nature's anxiety disorder. Let's talk about the fluffiest, cuttest animal, the one that's basically a living stress ball with ears. Rabbits look adorable, but their entire existence is pure, concentrated anxiety wrapped in fur. Here's how rabbits start life, born completely hairless, blind, deaf, and helpless. They're basically pink jelly beans with a heartbeat. And from that moment on, their entire life is spent being terrified of literally everything, because guess what? Everything does want to eat them. Predators on land. Check. Predators in the sky. Check. Predators in the water. Yep, fish have been documented eating baby rabbits. Even underwater isn't safe. Nowhere is safe. Their entire existence is just running from death in every possible direction, while their heart rate spikes to dangerous levels. Rabbits suffer from something called neophobia, an extreme fear of new objects or changes in their environment. You could move a rock in their territory, and they'll have a full-blown panic attack. A rock, an inanimate object that poses zero threat, sends them into cardiac arrest levels of stress. Imagine living in such constant fear that a leaf moving in the wind triggers an instant heart attack. That's not survival instinct, that's just existing in permanent nightmare mode. So how do they survive as a species? Simple. Nature gave them the panic button and the Netflix sand chill combo. They reproduce at absolutely insane rates. A single rabbit can have up to 14 babies per litter and can get pregnant again immediately after giving birth. They basically speedrun parenthood while simultaneously dying of anxiety. Their entire survival strategy is panic constantly, reproduce frantically, and hope that statistically something makes it to adulthood. It's like playing the lottery, except the prize is not being eaten today. 5. The Greenland shark, the 400-year-old mystery. And finally, let's talk about the Greenland shark, an animal that was born around the same time Shakespeare was writing Hamlet and is still alive today, slowly cruising through the Arctic Ocean like an underwater senior citizen who refuses to retire. These sharks can live over 400 years, making them the longest-lived vertebrates on Earth. But here's the catch. They don't reach sexual maturity until they're about 150 years old. Imagine being a teenager for a century and a half. That's not adolescence, that's a prison sentence. They move slower than humans walk, eat maybe once or twice a year, and are often completely blind because of bioluminescent parasites that attach to their eyeballs and just live there, forever, glowing, like the world's worst mood lighting. Imagine being half-blind, moving slower than a snail, having an existential crisis, and still being an apex predator. That's like your grandpa showing up to an MMA fight in his bathrobe and somehow winning by just existing near his opponents until they give up from boredom. These sharks live in near-freezing water in complete darkness, drifting through the abyss for centuries with no concept of time, slowly eating whatever unfortunate creature drifts into their path. They don't hunt actively, they just exist, and occasionally something becomes dinner through sheer bad luck. Their biggest enemy isn't other predators or lack of food, it's time itself. Half a millennium of just existing, drifting in the freezing dark. No thoughts, no dreams, just endless cold water and the occasional confused seal. Scientists think they might not even feel pain, the same way other animals do, because their metabolism is so incredibly slow. They're basically living in biological slow motion, where everything from digestion to aging happens at a pace that makes sloths look hyperactive. So let's recap this absolute circus of evolution. The sunfish, a lazy pancake that gave up on being a fish and now just floats around collecting parasites like they're Pokemon cards. Cicadas, underground prisoners who spend 17 years preparing for the world's shortest, loudest speed dating event before dying immediately after. The immortal jellyfish, a brainless blob that discovered eternal life and uses it to float aimlessly while eating and pooping from the same hole for all of eternity. Rabbits, fluffy anxiety machines that live in permanent panic mode and survive purely through sheer reproductive volume and statistical probability. The Greenland shark, an ocean grandpa that's been alive for 400 years, moves in slow motion, can't see, barely eats, and still somehow dominates its ecosystem through pure stubbornness. So here's the real question. Which one of these absolutely ridiculous life strategies would you choose? Eternal floating with no brain, 17 years underground for 2 weeks of screaming, for centuries of slow motion existence in freezing darkness, constant panic, but maximum fluffiness, or giving up on being a complete fish and just accepting your fate as a parasite-covered disappointment? Drop your pick in the comments and, I mean, your honest answer. Which of these bizarre existences would you actually choose if you had to? I'll be reading through and replying to the funniest ones, so give me your best justification for why you'd want to be an immortal poop-eating jellyfish. If you enjoyed learning about these absolutely unhinged animals, smash that like button so YouTube knows you appreciate quality educational chaos. Hit subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss the next video where we dive even deeper into nature's most questionable design choices. And hey, if your life feels weird or complicated right now, at least you're not a jellyfish eating and pooping out of the same hole for all eternity, so you've got that going for you. Until next time, stay curious, stay grateful you're not a sunfish, and remember, no matter how bad your day is going, somewhere in the Arctic, a 400-year-old shark is having an even slower one. See you in the next video.